It's December 12th. It's 1 o'clock Eastern time. It's a Tuesday, I think. Yeah, it's a Tuesday. That's right. So it's time for Aesop's Fables. Today we're going to study Fables number 114 and 115. 115 is a very famous fable that everyone already knows. You've probably heard about it a million times. The first fable we're going to study is the fable of the oxen and the butchers. That's fable number 114. And then the second fable we're going to study is 115, which is the boy and the wolf, the shepherd boy and the wolf. And everyone knows that one. So we'll talk about it and see if we can think about something interesting, since we already know that fable. All right, so I think I'm ready to get started here. Let me zoom in on my screen and then I'll share it. Let's see, share my screen. So let's study the fable of, nope, not the shepherd boy, he's second. Let's study the fable of the oxen. All right, let's take a look at this fable. Now remember, the reason why we're going over this is not to entertain everybody. I'm not a TV show host. I'm not a celebrity here. We're going over these lessons together in live classes so that you can complete the assignments and get credit for these lessons with some help. So that's the purpose. So make sure after we get done with these lessons, you get on the study center, sign into your account, go to Aesop's Fables, find the fable that we study together and go get these assignments completed, okay? Get them completed. Try to do it the same day so you don't forget what we talked about and you can get them done quickly. That's my goal. That's why I'm doing this, just to try to help you guys get this done quickly. So you get all the answers right the first time and you can move on through the course, because there are 400 fables. So if you were left to yourself, it would take you a long time, and sometimes you'd get the answers wrong and you'd have to do it over again. So I would like to try to make it as easy and as quick as possible for you to get these lessons done and get them right. Okay, so let's take a look at this fable of the oxen and the butchers. All right. Once upon a time, the oxen took counsel together. And if you don't know what oxen are, it's probably important that we make sure we understand what they are. Most people know that oxen are like big cows, right? Some people might not know exactly what they are. But oxen are cows, not cows, actually. They're bulls that can't reproduce, and so they're just used for farm work. They're usually very big and strong. They're very gentle and calm, and they're used to do all kinds of farm work. So they usually live a long time, and then at the end of their life, when they can't work anymore, they're usually sent to the butcher. All right. So this fable here is titled "The Oxen and the Butchers." So we're going to read about oxen. They're farm work animals. They're not just regular cows. They're not bulls. They can't reproduce, and so they're used for farm work. They usually get real big and strong, and they're very calm, and they're used by farmers to pull plows and pull wagons and do all kinds of other work. So once upon a time, the oxen took counsel together. The oxen gathered together and had a meeting. And they agreed upon ridding the land of all the butchers. So they decided, we're tired of these butchers killing us and cutting us up. We need to get rid of the butchers. So they got together, all the oxen got together, had a meeting, and they decided to get rid of all the butchers, because they constantly led away the finest and fattest of the oxen to perish by the axe and the knife. That doesn't sound very nice. So the oxen were tired of being put to death by these butchers, so they decided to gather together and get rid of these butchers, chase them out or kill them, whatever they planned to do. They were on the point of proceeding to carry out their plan. So they agreed on it. They were just about to do it and go and start getting rid of the butchers, when a wise old ox prayed them or asked them or begged them to reconsider their intention. So there was an old wise ox, and he told them to hang on a minute. They weren't acting very wisely. "You may be certain," said he, that men will not go without beef. Men will not go without beef. If we kill the butchers, who are already expert in their trade and who put us out of pain as quickly as possible, we shall be hacked and hewed by others who have yet to learn the business. So the old wise ox says, it may be bad that these men, these butchers, put us to death and cut us up for meat, but they do it pretty nicely. They usually put us to death pretty quickly and easily. They're actually gentle to us. And when they cut us up, we're already dead, so we don't feel any of that. It's not that bad. But if we kill the butchers who are actually skilled in these things, men are still going to want meat, and they're still going to kill us, but the men who kill us are going to be men who don't know what they're doing. And instead of doing everything quickly and easily and nicely, they're just going to hack and hew us to pieces. And so it's going to be much worse. So maybe we should think twice about this, because even though we have this problem with the butchers, if we get rid of them, we might have even bigger problems. And so we're told this sensible reasoning prevailed, and the plan dropped to the ground. So the oxen thought twice about their plan, and they decided not to kill the butchers. All right, so let's talk about this fable of the oxen and the butchers. So if we think about it, it's a pretty simple lesson to understand. It's a pretty simple moral to understand. The oxen have a problem, right? The problem that the oxen have is that they're being put to death by the butchers. And they look at the situation, and they're not really thinking very, very deeply on it. They're just looking at what they experience, and they're upset. They're frustrated by it. And they say, we've got to do something about this. We can't let these butchers keep putting us to death, especially, we're these big, strong oxen. They're just these little skinny, scrawny men. We can't let them put us to death like this. We've got to do something about this. Let's get rid of these butchers. Let's use our strength. Let's gather together and let's run these butchers out of town. So they've got a problem with the butchers, and they think of a quick solution. Let's get rid of these butchers. The problem, however, is that there's a cause of the trouble that they have. The cause is that men eat meat. That's the real cause of their trouble. And what the wise old ox says is, look, men are still going to want to eat meat. So if you kill the butchers, men are still going to come and get meat, but they're going to get it in an even worse way. So maybe this isn't so bad unless you can get to the cause, unless you can fix the cause, which is that men want meat. Our problem's not going to go away. In fact, it might get worse. So he warns the oxen about this plan to chase off the butchers, and they listen to him, thankfully, and they follow his advice. So they don't kill the butchers. They realize that even though the butchers are a problem, it might not be the worst problem. All right. So this is the fable of the oxen and the butchers. So let's think about some moral lesson here, right? The moral lesson, if you're going to take some notes and write this down, which you should if you're smart, the moral lesson is to be careful to consider the cause of our problems, right? To be careful to consider the causes of our problems. Be careful to consider the causes. So that's the moral lesson. And that's what the old wise man says. He doesn't just say, leave the butchers alone, let them live. He says, what he actually says is, men will not go without beef. That's what the old wise ox says. Men will not go without beef. That's the actual cause of our problems. Men want beef. Cause of our problems is not that the butchers kill us. The cause of our problems is that men want beef. And so what the old wise ox does is he focuses everybody's attention on the real cause. All right. And that's a problem that we often have. We often have something wrong and we don't deal with the cause. We deal with some other thing and we leave the cause in place. This is what bad doctors do. Bad doctors, if you go to the doctor and you've got a bad doctor, and you say, "Oh, doctor, I've got headaches every day. Every day I wake up, I've got a headache. I have headaches all day long. My headaches never go away." A bad doctor won't think about the cause of your headaches. He'll just give you some medicine so you don't feel the headaches anymore. And that might sound like a good idea, but you might have a real problem, and your headache is a sign of that problem, telling you something's wrong and giving you a chance to fix the cause. But if you've got a bad doctor, he might not even talk about the cause and just cover up the pain, which is like turning the alarm off, right? So if you've got a bad doctor, he won't think about the cause. He'll just try to fix the immediate problem. You say, "Oh, I've got this headache." He'll say, "We can take care of that. Here's some medicine. Take this. You won't feel your headache anymore." But the problem, the cause of the problem is still there, and it might cause even worse things to happen. The headache might have been the first problem of many, and the other problems might come after that headache is taken away. So a bad doctor would try to fix a problem without dealing with the cause. And that's the kind of thing most of us do. Most of us, we have a problem in our life. We don't think about it enough. We don't think about the causes of it. We just try to cover up the problem or get rid of the trouble. And that's really not wise. The wise old ox teaches us to think about the causes of the problems. The causes of the problems. Okay, and we can think about lots of applications where we can use a proverb like this. For example, let's say you're in the house and it's raining outside, and one day you realize that there's a leak in the house and there's water dripping in one of the rooms. And sometimes the water might leak into the house, it might get into the ceiling, and it starts to drip through the ceiling. And you notice that. So what do? You say, "Oh no, there's water dripping in the room." And so you say, "Go grab a bowl, go grab something so we can catch this water because it's dripping onto the floor." So you go get a bowl and you put a bowl under the spot where it's dripping. And then you say, "Oh, good, that's fixed, right? That's fixed. We got it's not making the floor wet anymore." Well, that's not a very good solution to that problem. Somebody might even be a little smarter and say, "No, no, no, we can't leave it like this. We've got to, it made the ceiling look ugly, and the paint is starting to peel. Maybe it starts to turn an ugly color. We have to peel that paint off and repaint the ceiling." And so you repaint the ceiling, make it look nice, and that might look nice, but that's not solving the problem. You still have a leak, and so it's going to happen again. And so you might keep going like that. But if you never fix the cause of the problem, which is that there's probably a part of the roof where the shingles got ripped up or something like that, and water is getting through there when it rains, if you don't deal with that cause of the trouble, you're just going to have more and more trouble over time, and something worse is going to happen. Like the whole roof is going to collapse or something like that, because the roof will start to rot. So we've got to learn to fix the causes of problems. Fix the causes of problems. That's what an old wise man would advise us to do. And so when you have a problem in life, this is what I want you to think about when you work on your assignment, when you think about the application. Think about problems in your life where you don't fix the cause of the problem, but you just try to cover up the effects of the problem. That never works. And that's what most people do, unfortunately. We've got to think about what actually causes the problem. And if we can't get rid of the cause, then we have to deal with the effects. So sometimes we can't get rid of the cause, right? A good example of this would be our own sin, right? If you think about original sin, if you know what original sin is, we're born with original sin. And it always stays in us, even until we die, even if we're baptized, even if we pray and study and receive the sacraments, the effects of original sin still stay with us, and they always will stay with us. And it's a cause of our problems that we actually can't get rid of. We can't get rid of it until we rise from the dead and go to heaven. We're always going to have this problem of original sin. And it's like this disease in us that's never going to go away. It's got all kinds of bad effects. And so sometimes there are things that we do that aren't very pleasant. They're not very pleasant. but there's just no better way to deal with the problem. And so we've got to deal with those things. And if we try to stop dealing with those things, the problems can get even worse. And that's what often happens to people. They say, oh, we don't want to have to do this or do that. We'd like to try to get rid of this problem, but they ignore the cause, and that just leads to worse problems. So the moral of this fable, to wrap this up very simply, is that in the Oxen and the Butchers, the moral is make sure you fix the cause of the problem. Don't try to cover up the effects of the cause. And if you can't fix the cause, like here, the oxen had no way to fix the cause. They couldn't get rid of the cause. Then you have to think carefully about whether the effects could be worse. If you try to fix one effect, you might create even worse problems. All right. This is the kind of thing that police officers have to deal with. You might have crime in a certain city, and there might be a group of people committing that crime. But the police actually have to think and say, you know what, if we round up all these people and put them all in prison, what if even worse criminals come? Even worse people could end up coming. We might have criminals in jail who are better than the next group of criminals. So a lot of times these problems that we face are complicated, and we've got to think about the cause, try to eliminate the cause. And if we can't eliminate the cause, we have to think carefully about whether trying to get rid of the effects might make the situation even worse. So that's the fable of the oxen and the butchers. I'll open chat up real quick. Any questions? Any applications you can think of for this fable where someone might try to get rid of the problem and not deal with the cause, or where there might be a cause that we can't get rid of, that we've got to just learn to be content with the effects? Any ideas there? No, but all doctors are not bad doctors. Some doctors deal with the causes. Okay, no questions? All right, so let's get going here. I'll turn that back off and we'll get rolling with our next fable. All right, so let's get to the next fable. The fable of the boy and the wolf. Now, everybody knows this fable. You've probably heard it. Let me ask real quick. How many of you have heard of the fable of the shepherd boy and the wolf? Just about everybody, right? The boy who cried wolf. You've heard of this? No, not all of you? Okay. Yeah, it's common. All right. So let's take a look at this fable. The shepherd boy who cried wolf. All right. Remember to pay attention to the details, right? This is a shepherd boy and a wolf. So this boy, he's a shepherd boy. That means his job in his community is to watch the sheep. And in the old days, they sometimes did things different. Sometimes people they would keep an area open, and they would just send all their sheep out, and there would be some shepherd boys who watched the sheep for everybody. So this boy was sent out there because watching sheep is pretty easy. Usually it's pretty safe. They've just got to make sure the sheep don't get into any trouble. So this boy was sent out to watch the sheep. And obviously he needs to make sure that if there's ever a problem, even if he might not be able to solve the problem, that he needs to tell people, he needs to tell the owners of the sheep or other men around about the problem so they can fix it. But this shepherd boy, notice what we learned right in the beginning. He's a mischievous lad. A mischievous lad. What does mischievous mean? What does mischievous mean? What does that mean? Is he good or bad? A mischievous lad. Yeah, he's not a good boy, right? Yeah, he's mischievous. He's the kind of boy who's always into trouble. That's right. Good. Okay, good. A mischievous lad. Good. Okay, so we're told, make sure you remember that, we're told that this shepherd boy is a mischievous lad. A mischievous lad, and one of the reasons why he might have been made the shepherd was because he got into trouble and he couldn't be given better jobs, so they just used to stick him out in the field and make him watch the sheep. That's a good job for annoying kids. Just make them go out in the field with a simple job. So a mischievous lad who is set to mind some sheep used in jest. In jest means he used to joke around, and he used to cry out or yell, "The wolf, the wolf." And when the people at work in the neighboring fields came running to the spot, he would laugh at them for their pains, because it was a real pain for those people. They were out working in the fields. The whole reason they asked the boy to watch the sheep was because they had farm work to do. And they were busy out in the fields trying to get their work done. And this annoying kid, who was supposed to be watching the sheep so they could work, he was bothering them just to fool around, and he would yell, "Wolf, wolf." And the people would get scared that the sheep were in danger. And so they'd drop their tools and they'd go running to where the sheep were. And then they would just find this boy being annoying, fooling around and laughing at them because he made them come to see the sheep. And there was really no problem. So he used to do this occasionally, it seems, because it says one day the wolf came in reality, and the boy this time called out, "Wolf, wolf," in earnest. So this time it was serious, and he was screaming for help that the wolf had come. But the men in the field, having been so often deceived, disregarded his cries, and the sheep were left at the mercy of the wolf. So the wolf was free to attack the sheep because no men would come, because when the boy cried for help, they had been through that so many times before that we said, we're not falling for this again. We don't care what that annoying kid says. We're just going to keep working. And the poor sheep got destroyed by the wolf. And if you don't know about sheep, a wolf can kill a whole flock of sheep, because they don't, the wolves, they're weird. They don't necessarily want to eat the sheep. They actually like killing them. So they might kill 50 sheep, even if they only eat or take away one of them. They might just kill lots and lots of them. Sometimes animals do that. Some animals like killing. We had a dog one time. My wife and I and the kids, we went for a ride someplace, and we were away for a while. And while we were away, one of our dogs got out of a cage, because we had some guard dogs on the farm. One of our dogs got out of the cage, and we had lots of chickens on the farm. And we came home and we pulled into the driveway, and when we were driving up to the house, we looked out behind our house and we could see that there was stuff all over the field, and we couldn't figure out what it was. And it turned out that one of our dogs got out and killed like 50 chickens, just dead chickens all over the place. And you see, like the dog, he's not even interested in eating them. It's just that the chickens are weak and the dog is strong. So if he even grabs a hold of it or messes around with it, the chickens will just easily die. So all the chickens, ran all over the place because he busted into their pen. They all ran all over the place. They were in the woods. They were dead all over the property. And it was all because this dog got loose. So sometimes when it says that the wolf, that the sheep were left at the mercy of the wolf, the whole flock could have gotten killed by one wolf. He doesn't necessarily go grab one and take it away to eat it. He could just kill all of them, just because that's what they do. They just kill. And sheep are very weak. If sheep get injured, they usually die pretty easily. They're hard to take care of, which is why shepherds are always concerned about them. They're actually very gentle, and it doesn't take much to hurt and kill a sheep. So this boy might have caused their village or their community to lose, dozens and dozens or even all of their sheep that day because of his fooling around. So anyway, we've got this fable of the shepherd boy and the wolf. And like I said, most of you have heard this story in some way. You've heard part of this story, or maybe it was told a little bit differently. Some stories, they say that the wolf actually attacks the boy and kills the boy. And so, that's the moral of the story. But let's just think about what we have here in this version of the fable and look at the details and think about the moral of the fable and what some applications might be. Obviously, everybody can guess the moral of the fable, right? It's that when you lie about things or fool around, what happens is people start to not take you seriously. They don't trust you anymore. They don't trust your word. And then when there's a real problem, and you need help, you've actually trained everyone to not pay attention to you or not trust you. So when you actually do need help, you're not going to receive any help, and that's the punishment for your own foolishness. So we know the main moral of the story, right? It's that if you fool around like this, and if you you lie about things and you lose trust with other people, it could actually be very serious. Losing the trust of other people is really dangerous. There are people who lie. I don't know if you know people who lie all the time, but some people lie all the time, and you start to get used to the fact that they lie all the time. And every time they talk to you, when they're talking to you, in the back of your head, you're thinking, this is probably not true, right? And you just get used to not taking those people seriously, even if they have good news to share or something like that. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, this is probably not true. I'm not going to get excited about it. I'm not going to say congratulations. I'm not going to do anything because I don't even know if it's true, because this person lies all the time. There are people like that. Hopefully you don't meet many of them. But that's what happened to this boy. So he's just annoying. Like it says, he's a mischievous lad. He's annoying people. Other people are trying to work while he's fooling around. There's much harder work that he probably could be helping with. And instead of being helpful, even just taking care of the sheep so the other men could work as hard as they can and not lose any time or waste any energy, he's goofing around, distracting everybody, drawing them away from their work. Just an annoying person, right? And he's fooling around, loses trust, and then all of a sudden something happens, and now this boy tries to be serious, but he's just made a clown and a nuisance out of himself. And even if he is in danger, nobody even cares, just because he's an annoying, mischievous person. And that's the bad effect of being like that. The danger of it is that not even that people won't take what you say serious or listen to you, but people won't care about helping you, and you'll end up paying the penalty for your own behavior. That's what's dangerous about all sinful behavior. All sinful behavior has penalties built right into it. There's penalties built right into the punishment. So you've got to be careful with sin, especially, not just because it's bad for your soul or because God's going to punish you, but because God has already built punishments for sins right into those sins. If you're a person who lies, you lose people's trust, and that's the punishment, that you lose people's trust. And that's what happens to this boy. So we can think about some moral lessons. The first moral lesson, like I just said, if we want to be more broad, we could say sin has punishments built into it, right? Sin has punishments built into it. This boy was annoying and was not honest with his words. And so he lost trust because of the way that he acted and talked. And when he came into a time of trouble, it says they disregarded his cries. They just ignored him. They didn't even pay attention to him. That's pretty scary to think about. To be a person who, fools around and is not honest. And if there's ever a time where you actually do get into trouble and yell for help, people might just ignore you because they think you're just being annoying again and fooling around. It's pretty scary to think about that. So that's one moral lesson. We could also just look at this boy, the fact that he's not working, right? Other people are trying to work, they're trying to do things. He's fooling around. It says in jest, he's doing this, joking around, fooling around, while the other men are working. So they're trying to get work done. People at work, it says, in the neighboring fields. And this boy is just, not only is he not helping them work, but he's even taking them away from their work. And so it's just a good moral lesson to be helpful to other people, not to have this character where you're always trying to fool around and, goof off while there's work to do. Think about helping other people. And one of the reasons why you should want to be helpful is because when you help others, you gain their friendship and their respect and their love. And when you need help, they'll come to help you as well. So You see this boy just not interested in helping people, not interested in working, looking to fool around every day, goofing around, loses everybody's trust, annoys people, and finally he pays a price for it. Now we're told that the sheep were left at the mercy of the wolf. We're not told here that he actually was attacked by the wolf, but can you imagine the trouble that he got into after this? Can you imagine how bad the trouble would have been? Just think about it. They already know he's annoying. They've already stuck him out in the field with the sheep, probably to keep him away from everybody else because he probably fooled around if he was by the workers anyway. He's bothered them all these times, yelling wolf, wolf, and making them stop their work and come check out what's going on. And then they find he's just goofing around again, fooling around, lying about seeing a wolf. Finally, they hear him one day and they don't listen to him. And then it turns out it actually is a wolf. And so the wolf then destroys all the sheep, and sheep are worth so much money, not just because they have meat or they make wool, but they also have babies and they make more and more sheep and they make more and more meat and more wool. And it just goes on and on. So they're so valuable. And when you lose sheep, when sheep are killed like that, it might take 10 years to build a flock back up again. It's a really big problem. And so can you imagine when these workers, all of a sudden, they hear the boy yelling wolf, wolf, and they're ignoring him, but then they start to realize that there are some strange sounds, and they look over in the field and they see the sheep running all over the place, and they finally see the wolf, and it's too late to do anything, and they've lost all these sheep, and meanwhile they're out trying to work just to produce their food and make a living, and now all their sheep are being destroyed, and all of this trouble is being caused by this one boy. I wouldn't want to be that boy after that happened, because he probably got into some serious trouble. And I bet that they taught him a good lesson after that day. But, seriously, I don't even know what they could have done, because something like that would be terrible for a village where they kept sheep. So you can just think about how terrible that trouble was. And I bet that village taught that boy a good lesson that day, and he probably never did that again. But it's a good warning for us. And there's a couple things. When you're kids, you're tempted to these things. You're tempted to always want to play. You're tempted to always want to fool around. And you don't pay attention to the fact that mom's trying to get work done, or that dad's got work to do, or that you could be helping to get other work done so that other people could actually have a nicer life and they're not left to do all the work themselves. But sometimes when you're a kid, you're tempted to just want to play because there's lots of fun stuff to do, and you don't think it's your job to do those things. But this lesson, it's more than just lying. It's also a lesson about being helpful, not being annoying, not being selfish, not always trying to fool around while other people are working, while there's work to do, and taking respect for other people's stuff. Like this boy fooling around put all these people's sheep in danger by his fooling around. That's another moral lesson we could think about, how fooling around often puts people in danger because we're not doing the stuff that we should be doing. So there's lots of moral lessons to think about in this fable. We can keep going and going if we think about it, but let's just make it simple and say that fooling around, not being honest, trying to joke around, not working, it just always leads to bad stuff. It always leads to bad results. So you should be sober, be respectful to others, be honest, realize that fooling around can get people hurt, and act responsibly. Don't act like this shepherd boy. Okay. And you can think about all kinds of applications for this. Think about all kinds of applications. It could be a time, let's say, for example, you're playing with your siblings or doing something with your siblings, and you decide you want to try to get your brother in trouble. So you lie and say that he did something bad or that he hit you or something like that. And your parents come in and they check it out and they find that nothing happened and everything's okay. And then one day your brother actually does do something bad and no one's going to listen to you when you actually do get hurt or something bad happens. They might not listen to you. So think about how fooling around and lying and things like that can get you hurt and can also get other people hurt. So it's a very serious lesson. All right. The shepherd boy and the wolf. So those are two fables. We got through them pretty quickly. And let me ask you, we got through those two fables quickly. We still have 20 minutes left. Does anyone want to do another fable? We can either stop early or we can do another fable. And if some people say they want to stop early and other people want to do another fable, we can just let the people who want to stop early, and we can just do another fable ourselves. All right, let's do another one. So that's 114 and 115. Pretty easy so far. Let's go ahead and look at the next one, okay? So let's take a look at this next fable. So we're moving on here to fable number 116. And like I said, if you don't want to, I mean, you're supposed to expect to be here for an hour anyway, so you're kind of fussing if you are going to complain about another fable, but we'll do another one since we've got 20 minutes left. All right, so let's look at this fable of the serpent and the man. So this would be number 116 in our Aesop's Fables course. The serpent and the man. The child of a cottager, okay, a person who lives in a farm area, lives in a cottage. The child of a cottager was playing in a field at the back of his father's house, and by chance he trod or stepped upon a snake, and the snake turned around and bit him. So this child was out back playing, accidentally stepped on a snake, and the snake turned around and bit the child. The child died of the bite. The child died from the snake bite. And so the father, pursuing the snake, aimed a blow at the snake and cut off a piece of his tail. So probably grabbed a hoe or something like that and was chasing the snake and took a whack at it and knocked off part of his tail, but not enough to kill him. The snake was able to get back to his home. The snake gained his hole, and the next day the man came and laid at the mouth of the hole some honey, some meal, that's like flour, some honey, some meal, and some salt, trying to lure the snake out of the hole, and made offers of peace, thinking to entice the snake forth and then kill him. So this man, it's a pretty sad story. His child goes out to play. The child's playing in the back field behind the house. There happens to be a snake out there. The child accidentally steps on the snake, not seeing the snake. And the snake just acting naturally. The snake's not really doing anything bad. The snake bites in self-defense, thinking he's being attacked, bites the child. The child is actually poisoned by the bite and dies. And then the father tries to kill the snake, which, is understandable why he would want to do that. I would certainly try to kill that snake. But then the man tries to make peace, it says, with the snake, and obviously the snake doesn't fall for it. The snake says, "No way, I know you're not trying to make peace with me." The snake says, "It will not do. As long as I miss my tail and you miss your child, there can be no goodwill between us. As long as I miss my tail and you miss your child, there can be no goodwill between us." So that's the fable of the serpent and the man. Now, the reason why, let's just think about the story. And again, nobody really did anything wrong. The snake is doing what snakes naturally do. The child was playing. The father was angry because he wanted to kill the snake, obviously because the snake was dangerous. But nobody really did anything wrong. And in the end, we find that there can never be peace between the snake and the man, not just because they both did something that hurt the other person, but because they have signs that are going to never allow them to forget what was done. The snake will always be missing part of his tail, and he'll always remember the day that the farmer took a whack at him. And the farmer will always be missing his child who died because of that snake. And so the snake says, there will never be peace between us. There can never be goodwill between us, because we'll always be reminded of how we injured each other, and we'll never trust each other, and we'll never be able to be friends. So that was the snake's response. And that's the moral lesson. The moral lesson of the fable is that when people seek revenge, they seek to pay each other back for wrongs that are done. They just can never have peace, right? When we seek revenge, we can never have peace. So let me ask you this. What do you think is the solution to a problem like this? You've got this, and remember, it's a fable, so it's obviously silly, right? Like, let's not get serious about a snake talking to a person, or how people should have peace with snakes. It's a fable. It's all figurative language, right? It's meant to teach us a moral lesson. What do you think the solution is for problems like this? I'm not asking how to kill the snake, Joseph. Flush the snake out with water. That's not what I'm asking. Yeah, some of you are actually thinking, about the moral of the fable. Right? The man's problem wasn't that he couldn't figure out how to kill the snake. But what this teaches us, now there's a couple, now this could lead to some controversial questions, right? We could say that the only way that there can be peace, so listen to me here, the only way that there can be peace in a situation like this is if one person chooses to forgive the other. That's the only way that there can be peace. Because when we seek revenge, what happens when we seek revenge is it just goes back and forth forever, right? So now let's say the farmer's angry at the snake, so he tries to kill the snake, he hurts the snake. Now the snake is trying to get back at the farmer, so maybe he goes and bites one of the farmer's other children or the farmer's dog or something like that. And now we've got the farmer going back after the snake and trying to kill him. And so you just see it goes back and forth forever. And that's how life is. If you look at the news right now, you'll see people in Palestine and Israel fighting against each other, and they just constantly go back and forth. One group does something bad, the other group goes and tries to make them pay for it. That makes them mad, so they plan to go back and do bad again to them, and then they get mad and they go back, and it just goes back and forth forever and ever and ever. And the only way that it can ever stop is for one group or one person to say, we don't want to do this anymore. We want there to be peace. So we're willing to accept the wrong that we suffered and forgive and not go back and forth anymore. So from now on, if you choose to do evil against us again, it's not just, because we're not going to return evil for evil. We're going to stop. We're going to accept the bad things that have happened to us. We're willing to make peace. We're willing to put an end to this and become friends. If you're willing to make an end to this and become friends, that's what forgiveness means. It means we're not going to remember it. We're not going to keep thinking about it, keep talking about it. We're not going to keep reminding them of it. We're not going to try to return evil for evil and make them pay for it or fight back against them. We're just going to try to let it die and stop. And that's really what the purpose of forgiveness is. So the snake is right. As long as he's missing his tail, and as long as the man is missing their child, and they're thinking about getting revenge for the bad things that they've suffered, there will never be any peace between them. So that's a good lesson. And the moral of the story is, if we seek revenge, if we seek to return evil for evil, we will never have peace. It's not like if you fight back, then there's going to be peace, because that's just going to create a new problem. And they're going to come and they're going to fight back again, and then you're going to go fight back again. It's never going to end the problem. The solution for violence and all kinds of bad relations, the solution is always forgiveness. And just think about it. That's how God dealt with us. God was good to us. We did terrible things and continue to do terrible things to God, but God does not fight us back or return evil for evil. He actually offers us forgiveness and says, if you're willing to have peace, I'm willing to have peace. So not only was God good to us in the beginning, But when we were bad and sinful, God chose to be good to us in the end as well. And that's what forgiveness looks like. And that's what God tells us. He doesn't tell us it's good for us to forgive other people. God doesn't just tell us it's good for us. He tells us we have to forgive other people. And he warns us that if we don't forgive other people, then he will not forgive us. So our salvation, our hope of heaven, depends on us forgiving people who do bad things to us. We have to forgive others. When we pray the Lord's Prayer, I'm sure you all know the Lord's Prayer. When we pray the Lord's Prayer, we say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others who trespass against us. So we're telling God, when we pray the Lord's Prayer, we say, we want you to forgive us the same way that we forgive others. Well, if we don't forgive others, then we're asking God not to forgive us. Or if we're willing to forgive some people for some sins, but not other sins, well, then we're asking God to forgive some of our sins, but not all of our sins. So we've got to forgive others the way that we want to forgive us. And that's how we should think about it. When someone does something wrong to you, you should think, you know what? This person did something wrong to me, but I've done things wrong to God. And I want God to respond to my sins the way that I respond to this person. So I'm going to respond to this person the way that I want God to respond to me. And that's how thinking about forgiveness actually becomes the way that we gain salvation. So we have to forgive others, or God is going to judge us with the same strictness that we judge us. So when you see people walking around complaining about, oh, the people did this and they did this and we're going to pay them back, that person's spiritually in a lot of trouble, because whatever they say about other people, however they judge other people, the stuff that they say, how they try to get back at those other people, they're just telling God how they want God to deal with them on Judgment Day. And that's a bad place to be. I know for me, I know when I stand before God on Judgment Day, I want God to be very, very nice, very, very merciful, very, very patient with me. And so I have to think about that every day. If my kids do something bad or someone does something that annoys me, I have to think about how I should respond to that and how I want God to respond to me. And that's an opportunity for me to show God, this is how I want you to treat me when I come before you to be judged. I want you to be nice to me the way that I'm going to be nice to this person. So we take control of our own salvation when we choose to be forgiving. And that's what we also pray in the Lord's Prayer. Like I said, we say, forgive us our trespasses in the same way that we forgive those who trespass against us. So we have to be careful. So that's the moral of this fable, that if there's no forgiveness, there never can be peace. It's especially hard in this story because both of these people that are involved, the snake and the man, they've got to live with these signs to always remind them of the problem. That makes it very difficult, right? You know, sometimes somebody does something wrong to us and it doesn't really leave any trouble. But other times somebody can do something wrong and we have to live with constant reminders of that problem. You know, you can imagine, like, if someone kills someone's child and that person has to live the rest of their life, like a mother has to live the rest of her life without her child, you can imagine that forgiveness is very, very difficult for that person. But at the same time, when things are very difficult for us, if we choose to do them when they're very difficult, they deserve greater reward because they're more difficult. So those people also have the opportunity to earn greater rewards by doing more difficult things. So the place of forgiveness in our life is very important. And this fable teaches us what happens when people keep returning evil for evil. It just goes on and on and on, and it's never going to end until God actually ends it at the end of time or at the end of our life. God himself will put an end to it. So if we want to end this kind of fighting, we have to be willing to suffer and sacrifice and be forgiving. Otherwise, there can't be any peace. And if we want God to be merciful to us in the end, we've got to choose to be merciful now while we live. To all the people who annoy us and do bad things to us, we've got to learn to forgive them, not for their sake, but for our own sake, right? That's what should motivate us to forgiveness. So that's the fable of the serpent and the man. Okay, so we got 3 fables done today. That's pretty good. 3 fables done today, 114, 115, and 116. You might not even remember the other ones. We did the fable of the oxen and the butchers. We did the fable of the boy and the wolf. And then we did the fable of the serpent and the man. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop our recording. Any of you who would like to get going, you're going to be free to go. I'm going to stop this and not talk about any new stuff, so you're free to go.